Imagine working hard your whole life, paying your bills on time, and finally enjoying the peace of living in a quiet suburban neighborhood. Now imagine one person, just one entitled neighbor, deciding that your effort and money are theirs to take. That's exactly what happened to James. A man who thought moving into an HOA community would bring him calm. Instead, it brought him face to face with Karen. Karen wasn't just any neighbor. She was the kind who believed rules applied to everyone else, but never to her. The kind who smiled sweetly when she needed something, but turned nasty when confronted. And her new obsession was her shiny, expensive Tesla. At first, James didn't mind her enthusiasm for electric cars. He thought it was kind of cool that someone in the neighborhood had gone green. But soon he noticed something strange. Every morning when he left for work, he'd see Karen's Tesla parked a little too close to his driveway. And every evening when he returned, his outdoor outlet cover was half open. At first, he thought it was a coincidence. Maybe the wind blew the cover. Maybe the landscapers moved it. But when his electric bill nearly doubled one month, James decided to investigate. One night, he stayed up late. Around midnight, he peeked out his front window, and there it was. Karen's Tesla plugged into his outdoor outlet. Her long extension cord trailed across the lawn like a snake. She was stealing his electricity night after night. James couldn't believe the audacity. Charging a Tesla wasn't pocket change. It was costing him hundreds. The next morning, he approached her calmly. "Hey, Karen," he began. "I think there's been a mistake. I've noticed your car plugged into my outlet a few times. Could you please stop? That's my electricity." Karen didn't flinch. Instead, she smirked. "Oh, come on, James. You've got plenty of power. It's just a car charge. Don't be so stingy. We all need to do our part to save the planet, right?" James blinked in disbelief. Not only was she stealing, she was trying to guilt him about it. "I don't mind saving the planet," he replied firmly. "But I'm not paying for your Tesla. Unplug it and don't do it again." Karen rolled her eyes, muttered something under her breath, and walked away. For a few nights, James thought maybe she'd gotten the message. But then, just when he started to relax, it happened again. The car was back, plugged into his outlet, bold as ever. Now James wasn't just angry, he felt violated. This was his home, his property, and she was treating it like her personal gas station. He tried the HOA next. He filed a complaint, explained the situation, even showed pictures of her car plugged into his house. But the HOA board, full of friends Karen had charmed over the years, shrugged it off. "It's just electricity," one of them said dismissively. "Don't make such a big deal out of it." That was the last straw. If the HOA wouldn't help and Karen wouldn't stop, James realized he had to take matters into his own hands. James was an electrician by trade, which gave him an edge. He knew how circuits worked, how surges traveled, and how vulnerable electronics, especially expensive car batteries, could be to sudden jolts of power. He didn't want to hurt anyone, but he did want to teach Karen a lesson she'd never forget. So he devised a plan. One weekend, he installed a small hidden device on the outdoor outlet. To anyone else, it looked like a normal socket. But when someone tried to draw power from it for more than a few minutes, it would release a controlled surge strong, enough to fry delicate electronics without harming the house system. That night, just past midnight, he spotted the familiar glow of Karen's headlights. She pulled up, dragged her cord across the lawn, and plugged in with a satisfied smirk. James watched from the window, his heart pounding. A part of him wondered if he was going too far. Another part of him, the part that had endured months of disrespect and skyrocketing. Bills told him this was justice. Within minutes, the surge activated. There was a sharp crack, followed by the faint smell of burning plastic. Karen's Tesla lights flickered, then died. She rushed out of the car in a panic, yanking the cord free, but the damage was already done. Her prized Tesla battery was fried. James stood in the dark, watching silently. He didn't cheer, didn't gloat. He just felt a quiet, heavy sense of balance restored. The next morning, the neighborhood was buzzing. Karen's Tesla sat dead in her driveway. A $15,000 battery cooked beyond repair. She paced up and down the street, waving her arms and ranting about sabotage and toxic neighbors. Of course, she wasted no time blaming James. "You're an electrician," she shouted across the lawn. "You did this." "I know you did." James didn't flinch. "Karen, you've been stealing from me for months." "I told you to stop." If your car broke, maybe you should look at who you were plugging into." Her face turned red. She stormed to the HOA board, demanding they fine James, punish him, maybe even kick him out of the neighborhood. But this time, the board didn't rush to her defense. James came prepared. He presented months of electric bills, photos of her Tesla plugged into his house, even a late-night video recording showing her dragging the cord across his yard. His evidence was airtight. For once, the HOA couldn't protect her. The truth was out. Word spread through the community faster than wildfire. Karen had been stealing power, ignoring warnings and playing the victim. Neighbors who once smiled at her stopped waving. Friends who once defended her avoided her calls. She went from queen of the block to pariah almost overnight. And the Tesla? She had no choice but to tow it to the dealership. When the technician told her the battery was fried and replacement, costs would run into 5 figures. Her shriek could be heard down the block. Insurance wouldn't cover it because it wasn't an accident. It was negligence. For James, the moment wasn't about revenge. It was about peace. For the first time in months, he could step outside without worrying about cords snaking across, his yard or his bill climbing higher and higher. He felt lighter, stronger, not because Karen had suffered, but because he'd stood up for himself in a situation where no one else would. He learned something powerful. Sometimes the fight isn't just about the money. It's about respect, boundaries, the simple right to enjoy your own home without being taken advantage of. Karen, on the other hand, learned a much harder lesson. Entitlement has a price. You can bully, you can manipulate, you can take advantage of kindness, but sooner or later, reality catches up. And when it does, it costs far more than what you tried to steal. For her, it was a Tesla battery. For others, it might be friendships, reputations, or trust. Weeks later, the neighborhood returned to normal. The kids rode bikes in the cul-de-sac. Sprinklers clicked on and off, and the smell of barbecue drifted through the air. James sat on his porch one evening, sipping a cold drink, watching the sunset. He didn't hate Karen. In fact, he felt a little sorry for her. But he knew he'd done the right thing. When you let someone walk over you, they'll never stop. Sometimes standing up isn't loud. Sometimes it's just quiet, firm, and final. Karen moved her Tesla to another charging station eventually, but the respect she'd lost in the neighborhood never returned. So here's the takeaway. Don't let anyone steal from you, whether it's your money, your time, or your peace of mind. Set boundaries. Protect them. And if someone refuses to respect those boundaries, don't be afraid to take action. And if you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and share so more people hear it. There are plenty more real-life lessons and emotional stories coming your way, and you won't want to miss them.